and welcome to the Keep It Local Maine podcast, where we tell the stories of local business owners, artists, and entrepreneurs, and learn more about what they do, who and what inspires them, their challenges, successes, and more. My name is Todd Regalinski.
And I am Kimberly Regalinski.
And we are the publishers of Keep It Local Maine, a magazine that helps to showcase local businesses to the people in and around their communities. Thank you for tuning in to our weekly podcast that you can subscribe to on most streaming services such as Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and others. You can learn more about us at keepitlocalmaine.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube through the links in the show notes. In this episode, we'll be talking with Maine singer and songwriter Mehuman. Folk hop for hip folks is a signature sound coined by singer-songwriter Mehuman, and it resonates with authenticity and integrity throughout her music. Her most recent album, Beautiful Ashes, carries her personal narrative fraught with love, joy, loss, and sorrow into redemption and restoration. She is a former Arista Records artist and multiple award-winning SESAC songwriter who has shared the stage with the likes of Norah Jones, Sheila E, DiFranco, the Verve, KoKo Taylor, and a previous guest of ours, Laurie Jones. And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Weather is getting warmer and it's project planning season, which means you should call Maine Commercial Contracting, your locally owned choice for residential and commercial services in southern Maine. They'll be there for that new driveway, walkway, or excavation for your home and for your business with parking lot paving, road milling, heavy hauling, and competitive commercial pricing. So when you need your project done right and on your timeline, get a hold of the company with the appetite for excellence and the skills to see it through. Call Maine Commercial Contracting at 207-391-0540 for a free estimate or find them online at mainecommercialcontracting.com.
Welcome to the show, Mehuman. We're so glad to have you here today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Kim. It's my delight. Thank you so much for asking me.
This is so great. I can't wait to hear more about just what you're doing. So can you tell us, when did you first discover music and who were really some of those earlier influences in songwriting for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I kind of didn't really get to discover it. My entire family is musical and I'm the eighth of nine. Wow. So I had a big head start with everyone else in my family being involved. And we listened to everything from gospel, jazz, blues, rock and roll, country and Western. So
wow.
I like the Blues Brothers reference. Thank you. Little Bob's Country Bunker. I appreciate that. Thank you. So, yeah, it must have been, did you learn just almost by osmosis by everyone else around you? Or was it just kind of a given, like, all right, you're going to, you're definitely going to sing and you're going to play an instrument, or did you just gravitate towards one thing or another? Or, how did that all kind of unfold? Yeah,
that's another good question. So we all had to take piano lessons. That was a given. My mother loved the piano and really it was important to her that we all played. And my dad played a little guitar. And loved to sing. He had a big country giant voice, but it wasn't his biggest forte as a pastor. He was more of a speaker. And so for me, actually, I was like Froggy. I was the kid who had no tone, completely tone deaf. Some arguably may say that hasn't changed much, but I had to really work hard in terms of songwriting. So my spot in the family was to be the songwriter from an early age.
That's interesting because I when I think more about it, the times that I have tried to venture into songwriting, I'm kind of realizing I'm a little bit in the same boat. Like, I don't have perfect pitch. I don't even feel like I have approximate pitch. Like, some people can be like, well, I think it's about this, and they can just pick it out of the air. And I'm like, you know what? That's very aggravating. Please don't do that in front of me again. But I can... through kind of working through it, I feel like I can kind of stack things on top of each other until it means something that someone else might find, interesting enough to work on. So it's kind of interesting that would be kind of where it feels like that's where you were at as in terms of a songwriter.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had an older sister who was an opera singer, another older sister who was on Broadway and touring with other people. And I had all these extraordinary head starter people. And so it seems like the deck was a little stacked for me. And I was like, maybe I'll just write music. So I shied away from actual singing until I was like in college. I was really kind of like freaked out about it a little bit.
Well, I could see that. Opera singers are no joke. That is an athletic endeavor to be an opera singer. You know, I can see where that would be a little intimidating. And you know, no pressure. Everyone else plays an instrument and sings, you know, what do you do? Yikes.
And well, too. And that was the thing. They were way more disciplined than me. And so the thing that came natural, though, and I guess easiest, was songwriting. So I kind of path of least resistance.
Yeah. Nice.
So when you do, just out of curiosity, because I didn't realize that you played piano, do you do any composition now using piano, or is it pretty much all guitar driven when you go to write a song?
You know, I try to work out voicings on piano, and I actually hear, interesting enough, I guess, I start with rhythms first, because I also was a dancer too. So everything was words and rhythm for me. And then I would find out voicings on piano. And my actual first instrument that I had to play, which I did not want to play, was the viola. So that's where I learned to read music reading for viola. And later in life, as a gift to myself, I started studying the cello a few years back. So I try to write on whatever's in my hand these days. And recently, I'm trying to figure out the harmonica. That's what my next thing is, trying to figure out the harmonica. I don't know why. It just seems like it would be fun.
Yeah, it's always interesting learning a new instrument, because it really does, it changes, at least I feel it if you're really paying attention, it changes your view of music. It opens up new doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me too, it's like another voice. So I like to write for human voices. And so with instruments, it has a similar effect where, depending on what I'm fooling around with, it'll stimulate a different way of writing. So it's always about writing for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously the last couple of years, there's this little COVID thing that's been going on. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but
oh boy, yes.
How have the last couple of years been for you as a songwriter and performer? And I guess what I'm asking for there is, have you been able to find opportunities to still make things work? Or has this been kind of that, not a hibernation period, but kind of a dormant phase as you're kind of prepping for whatever's next?
I love how you phrase that question, because for me, it was COVID began right on the tail end of not the tail end of it, but my mother had passed that summer before. And so I didn't know it, but I was in need of some rest and some reflection time. So a couple of the first songs I wrote in the COVID era were processing that. So I was unusually prolific out the gate with that. And then subsequently, I've had this whole season to reflect on what is important to me and to really kind of put my priorities in a better, I think, order. It's not perfect yet, but it's slowly getting to even more clarity. So there were so many silver linings to it, as far as just really figuring out what is important to me and what I want to be known for. I've been really focused on, well, you know, you got to die from something, but what do you want to live for? So that's been kind of my mantra.
Yeah, that's good.
And so for you, I mean, where are you in that process? Like, where do you kind of like, okay, this is kind of what I'm aiming at, or this is what I'm leaning towards?
Yeah. So I have every day, this is a reflection I get, is love God and love people. And so I try to filter each step of that each day about, okay, how am I going to accomplish that? And some days are better than others. So musically, I thought to myself, well, when I'm not writing, I want to be supporting other writers and other artists or people who are trying to bring beauty to the world. So, and I also find that there's some selfish intent to that too. Is like when I get stuck or I'm not feeling like I want to write and I go to the work of someone else, it every single time inspires something from me. So this has kind of been a really rich time for me, because so many people have been accessible because of the stillness that has been created by this pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting because that has been a bit of a theme as we've talked to different, musicians and especially songwriters, talking to, of course, your friend Laurie Jones and also Dave Gutter and just this kind of period of like, okay, I didn't really have a choice except to be kind of still and quiet and, kind of just sit with whatever's going on. So,
yeah. I'm glad you brought up Laurie, because I got to spend the first 8 months spending every single week with her, talking through and working through Dark Horse as her latest release, and getting to co-produce that with Darren Elder out of the Halo Studios. And that is a perfect example of a silver lining. I couldn't be more proud for her in that record.
Yeah. Which actually, now that I think about it, Halo is pretty much an old barn. So how funny is it that you have Dark Horse being made there?
Yeah.
How did I not think of that when we were recording that episode?
You know, it's so weird because I didn't think of that either. There's so many horse things that come up every time we talk about that record. It's really funny. I have to bring that one up too.
I never thought of that until just now.
Yep.
So you actually had an album that came out a little bit prior to COVID, and if I'm remembering right, you recorded that at the Halo as well. That was Beautiful Ashes, correct?
Yes, that's true. Originally, Beautiful Ashes was recorded at the end of 2019, but actually I think it was mastered to 2020-ish.
Okay, yeah.
Somewhere in the gray area there. And we started to release it and do some things with it, but then the world went mad and we were trying to figure out which way to go. And I was also processing, just the new changes with my family dynamic. And so we sat on it, and I really sat on it for longer than I intended to, until actually bringing up Laurie again really inspired me to say, you know what, there's great merit in that work, and let's give it some support and see how it does. And I'm glad she encouraged me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One thing I'm always a little curious about, because I'm not a music theory person. I don't know music in that way, so I get into the geeky kind of trivia and minutia because I can do that. I can do that with a computer. I don't need to know what an A flat with a minor seventh, a demolished eighth is or whatever. Oh, there are people who do, and I shake my head like
they know it, but do they really need to know it?
Well, there is an argument to be made there because B.B. King did very well for himself over decades, and having someone say, just play it for me. Don't tell me what the chords are. Just play it, and then I'll play along. But one thing I'm always interested in is how a song can change and evolve after it's been recorded, or even before it's recorded, then to the recording process, but then to, months, years later. Yeah. How that song can change tempo or tone or even just be completely reinvented. Do you feel like after now at least, almost 2 years of Beautiful Ashes kind of being done and recorded, do you feel like when you go back to those songs now, like, oh, this one feels a little different, or I've done a little something different with this song?
Every single time. That is a great insight. Because I didn't stop changing. That's just like a photograph, really, And so each record for anyone is just really a photograph. And if you're living, you keep evolving and keep learning, hopefully, and interpreting the world around you. So even when you go back to the same picture, you see new nuances, and it's faded a little. It's got some crinkles in it, or maybe someone is no longer in that picture. Yeah. So it absolutely changes every single time. It's you got to hold on loosely, like the song. Okay. There is a song, right? Hold on loosely.
Yeah, who is that? I can't remember who it is.
It's got to be a 70s song, right?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
So I have to ask, because this is just been dying to know. So birthing this album, there's so much work that goes into it. And is there a song? And I've always been curious about this. Is there a song that is your favorite child that or is there a verse in a song that you came up with? You're like, yeah, that's it. Is there a particular verse or song that really stuck out to you, or just really had that powerful impact on you?
From Beautiful Ashes or recently?
Yeah.
Okay, from Beautiful Ashes, I probably would have to say Tremble would be that song, just because it's a ballad. It's a love song, and it kind of puts all that upset and just processing that goes through the whole record. It ends in a very sweet spot musically, and also it has a cathartic part of it where it says, "Never let your feet touch the ground, never let your heart come down." So I guess I gravitate to that because when I get to play that song, I feel it as an encouragement, and I feel encouraged.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and we can totally edit this out. But could you sing a piece of that song? Just a piece of that you really like? I know it's putting you on the spot, and I can totally edit this out if you don't want to.
Okay, me. Okay.
Yeah. Like, what is that? What is
before
that
7 p.m.? You want me to sing? All right. Yes. I don't know why it's just so hard to keep my feet on the ground. You're in my heart. You're on my mind. Your love makes me happy. I'm lost up in a cloud. I would not trade one single day, not one single moment I've spent here with you.
I got chills.
Nice.
I got chills.
I don't know.
That's so good.
There's a little Billie Holiday in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's maybe a little more than I wanted. I was a little hoarse.
That was good. I like that.
You know, it is. I was like, well, let me just style this thing to be a little jazzy since I can't the notes, so I'll just try to style it.
Good.
That's what you have to do. Sometimes you realize like, oh no, it's too early. I just had a glass of milk. Like everything is working against me singing right now. No.
That was good.
Oh, and by the way, yeah, Hold On Loosely was by 38 Special. Just for everyone to know, I just want to make sure we caught up on that. So I believe, Kim, you have the next question.
Yeah. So how would you say your musical influence have changed from when you started until present day?
Oh my word. You know, the biggest change probably is my motivation and my focus. I've always written from the perspective of like love songs, like either absence or presence of it. But my idea of what love is has dramatically changed because of my faith. When I first became a songwriter, even though I grew up in a house of faith, Christian home, I wasn't a practicing Christian at that time. And so everything was kind of just informed by my own little spot in the world. Mm-hmm. And later as an adult, having become a follower of Jesus, I think that my perspective started to think more about how well I love myself and love others in terms of a bigger love. So that's been very complicated for me as a writer because I struggle sometimes to what am I trying to write about sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that's complicated things in a good way because it's made me have to think about my motivations and really what my intention is, what I want to communicate.
And so some of those influences that you had growing up, who would you say was, as far as the musical influences that really made the biggest impact on you?
Oh my word. Definitely rock and roll. Anything that was like rock and roll. And I did like jazz quite a bit, more like straight ahead jazz, but I was really, really into rock and roll and all of it, just screaming guitars and noise and ruckus and the whole thing about it, everything about it I loved. And I still do. And then I'd have to say anywhere from like Zeppelin to Bono to, that's a real big stretch right there. And Nina Simone, just all over anything that had a catharsis to it probably was really attractive to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just hit on one of Kim's big musical binkies right there. She loves her some Nina Simone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loves.
Yes.
Which is hilarious to me because it's like Saturday morning and you just get, feeling good cranking in the house. I'm like, what's going on? I'm not awake yet. Hang on.
Favorite song.
That was our wedding song. That was my husband's favorite song. We had that at our wedding.
Love that.
It's a phenomenal song. I mean, and an incredible artist, but sometimes it's like I need a second cup of coffee before we blast this at 11. I'm in. I just need to be a little more awake.
It is for morning people.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know that I'm that. I don't know. So in addition to being a singer, musician, songwriter, producer, you're also a podcaster now. And so I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about your podcast. And first of all, I just want to say I love the title of it, because I think every songwriter or musician has said this about 100 times at least.
Yes.
About somebody else's song, because you're just like,
yes,
so good. Yes. But how is your podcast, which is called I Wish I Wrote It, how does that help and feed you as an artist in addition to just being what it is?
Oh, well, so this was it's interesting for me because Wish I Wrote It came about exactly as you testified to, that I constantly hear people's work and I'm like, oh, how come I didn't get that download? And I was doing a performance at Thompson's Point, I think it was last April, and I was invited to pick a record that I would like to cover and then perform it. And I've always shied away from covering other people's music, especially while they're still living, because I always feel like it's perfect the way it is. But it also was a part of me that was just like, I wouldn't know what to do with it. It's not my song. So I picked that record because it was the anniversary. I think it was like the 30th anniversary or something like that of Achtung Baby. I picked that as on YouTube, and I knew it was so far away from anything I did that no one could make a comparison. Like, hey, you didn't get those Bono notes right, So I'm like, well, I'm not Bono.
Nobody except Bono does get them right, so it's fine.
So I picked someone completely opposite that I loved. And so just the process, I spent about 8 weeks every single day, all day long, playing that record, rewriting the charts, writing charts, arranging them, and working with a trio to bring it about. And I discovered so much. I read all this back history on the songs, all this kind of stuff. And music that I had loved for years, I really had no idea of all that was in those songs. And I'd always loved those songs. And I realized that, that there's an opportunity to do living eulogies with people's work. And so Wish I Wrote It, the show came as a outbirthing of that experience of really getting to concentrate on someone else's work, to know them as well as I would have known them if I had written them myself in a way. So I wanted to, I thought to myself, wow, what better way to pay homage to a group of people that have made my life really rich and enjoyable, which are other songwriters.
Which, and first of all, love the choice of the album, because to me, Achtung Baby is probably, it would be in my list of like near perfect albums. I could not think of anything I would change, songs I would take off of it, anything. To me, it is beautiful just the way it is. I also think it's interesting because there are not a lot of people who cover U2. And for good reason. The only one the one that springs to mind right off the top of my head would be, there is a beautiful cover of One from that album, done by Joe Cocker.
Oh, and yes.
So, I mean, but other than that, there's not a lot of people that really want to take on U2 because it's a lot of work, man. I mean, for four people, they put out a lot of layers and a lot of sound, and just trying to decipher all the different layers of edges, guitar effects and all that. I can imagine that's daunting to get down to like, okay, what is the actual DNA of this song?
Well, that was the challenge, because I had to quickly realize I had to give up on that. I had to give up. So I did all this reading, and I found out that was almost the record where they were going to break up because they just didn't know where else to go. And Ed was getting divorced, and there was different things going on. And the band was really, these boys had grown into men, and they weren't sure of their own identity. And they were in this big transformation period. And so when that record landed in my life again last year, I was in a similar place. And I realized, you know what? These songs beg me to be authentic of how they land in me. There's no way I can recreate any of this. So I spent all that time like just figuring out how I would do them. And it was a fantastic gift from them.
So who are some of the people that you've had on your podcast?
So I've had upcoming Amelia Wright. I've had Laurie Jones. I've had David Newbold. I've had Travis Napier. I've had Nikki O'Neill recently, last week. I've had Aaron Vance. I have the great Thornetta Davis tomorrow night. So excited about that. Claudia Nygaard. We're in our second season. And just been really blessed to have a lot of folks. And coming up, we have Guitar Gabby, and we have the Chapel Heart Band, and we have Chad Elliott, who just confirmed today. So a lot of artists from all over the place have been kind enough to share their work with us.
That's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, what is your songwriting process like?
I wish I could say, I have people who are other songwriters who are super disciplined. They get up at 5 in the morning, they spend 4 hours writing, and then they drink some coffee, and then they do the same thing. And they're super prolific, and that's wonderful. I have not arrived at that maturity as a songwriter in some sense. For me, it can often be catch as catch can, because I wear some other hats, unfortunately, or fortunately, where I have other work I have to do. So for me, my process begins with setting a pocket of time away from everything. Sometimes I take 3 or 4 months when I'm able to do that. and I will disappear, and it's basically my writing time, my retreat, and I'll spend a lot of intentional 2 or 3 months just writing, and then I have to jump back into my day job and focus on other things. And then sometimes my process is, I hear something and I'm like, everybody stop. I got to write this down. And I get a song, no one breathe, hold on. That happens. I wish that would happen more, but usually I have to go cloister myself away somewhere and work.
Yeah. Nice. I saw on Twitter, totally not a true connection here, but a connection nonetheless. But I saw where Spose had tweeted something about he always will put stuff into his voice memos on his phone. Yes. And he said, I know I've got hits in there, but I refuse to go back and listen to them. He said, I need a voice memo manager to go back and re-listen to all this stuff and hand it back to him. I'm like, I think anyone who does songwriting on any level probably can identify with that,
Oh, my word. So I'm going to tell you exactly how many songs I have on my voice memo right now, because I was looking at this.
Everyone else has 18 gigs worth of photos. It's all voice memos for you, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm like, what? Whose idea was this to even begin this madness? I have 1,656 songs on my phone to be dealt with. And I could not tell you anything about one of them.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me. So I need that same manager. I have no clue what's on here. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, maybe I'm starting to sense a new business opportunity for me here. I might be getting into this. It'll be Todd, the voice memo manager. That's what I will do. I'll go through and listen to all these song bits and I'll rank them for people. That'll be what I do.
You could name your price. You really could. You could name your price.
And the great thing is, it's a great way for me to procrastinate from doing my own creative stuff, which is perfect.
Perfect use of my time.
Yes. One of the questions we always like to ask, because of all the different answers that we get, is how do you define success, either personally, professionally, or both?
I got to say, I've been so blessed. I think for me at this point in my life is to get to do more of what I've been doing is a success, and also to get to have the resources to play it forward and be in other people's lives and encouraging them. I'm just overwhelmed by how much I've been given. So success is every day that I get to figure out how to be of use and to be grateful. It really is. That might sound a little squishy, but that's how I feel.
No,
awesome.
I think that's a great definition.
Yeah, for sure. So we're inspiration junkies. So
as well.
We always like to kind of ask this question: who or what inspires you?
I am my parents, my mom and dad. There is not a day that I go by. There's not a conversation I have with my siblings, because we meet every 2 weeks via Zoom, if not more often, but definitely every 2 weeks. And my parents were so involved in our lives and so involved in us as individuals. They were absolutely my two number one heroes. And they also raised our family very centered in a faith perspective of right and wrong, but also of love and grace and charity and kindness. So there's not a day that goes by where I don't think of something one of them said or some wisdom or chastisement, like, what are you doing? So I'd have to say that those two people definitely are my biggest inspirations, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep. Well, Mehuman, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us. We definitely appreciate it. Congratulations on the new podcast, and we are wishing you well in 2022 here. I will make sure in the show notes that I have a link to your website, social media, and the podcast as well, so that folks can listen to all that and follow you on all those different platforms.
And the album, Beautiful Ashes.
Yep, and album as well, which I believe is available.
People buy the album. It's phenomenal.
Everywhere.
It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you again, and we wish you nothing but success this coming year.
Thank you for having me, Todd and Kim. Keep it local, everybody. Keep it local.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor and encourage you to check them out through the link in the show notes. And thank you again for listening.